Hey YouTube, John here with episode 7 of My Mineral Wells Summer, and today's episode is one I've been really looking forward to. We are featuring a wonderful spot in Mineral Wells called Clark Gardens. If you've never been there, you'll be blown away. You have to go. It's wonderful, it's incredible, and in today's episode we're going to be hearing from the lady who runs the place, Carol Clark Montgomery. And in part 2, a separate video, we'll actually take a tour and show some of the highlights of Clark Gardens. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode of My Mineral Wells Summer. I am here at Clark Gardens, just east of Mineral Wells, Texas. And if you've never been here, you are missing a really incredible site. And I'm here with Carol Clark Montgomery. Well, first of all, tell us who you are, and then tell us the history of Clark Gardens.
Thank you, John, and thank you for coming out on like one of the hottest days of the year.
Sorry.
Just wanted to point that out. No, the garden is, I'm actually the daughter of the co-founders, Max and Billy Clark. My mother is deceased, she's from Alzheimer's, so we do a lot in memory of her, and my dad is still here, and at 93 and a half works 5 days a week from 8 till 5.
Wow.
So, and he's out in the sun pulling weeds and doing things that the rest of us don't want to do. So if anybody thinks they're too old to garden, I can get you someone to teach you a few tricks of the trade.
All right.
But the garden came about kind of innocently and without a lot of planning. And I know that sounds a bit naive, but I think my parents were a bit naive. My dad had always been a contractor in telecommunications, and the company sold, and he was, a young 70, I guess, yeah, and he wasn't ready to quit work. So he kind of built the garden as a love story or to give back to my mother. He had left us every Monday morning and came home Friday night or Saturday night and worked our whole lives like that. So I think when he did my mother kind of forced him to sell the company, and she wanted him home, that he thought this was a way to give back to her. So
Wow.
what her legacy for the garden was that she was really the beauty and the grace of the garden.
Okay.
And you can see some of the developments that we've done after her. She was no longer part of the garden. Don't quite have all that beauty and grace. It's a little more rough around the edge. A couple of men did some of the planting. My dad and the wonderful John Holder. Many of y'all will remember John Shannon Cavness, his dad. They kind of designed it like two men would. It's a little more rustic. That's what the west side is. That was really Dad and John, but my mom was this original part of the garden, and I still feel her every single day. Sometimes I blame her for if we've gotten a freeze when we didn't want one, or I think she should have been able to control that. Or sometimes when we miss the freeze, I think she did something to help us there. She is actually buried here and buried on top of the White Garden, for those of you who visited, right across from the chapel. My dad will be buried there also. He says, though, wait till there's no flowers, just put him in the freezer, and then we can bury him in the dead of winter. So we'll wait and see how that goes.
He's dedicated. He is dedicated to the gardens.
He sure is, and as ornery as he can be. If you imagine a 93-year-old man who's worked every day of his life since he was 17, that's what my dad is. His expertise or what he gave to the garden was hard work. And in the construction world, he was able to see things more in a 3D. And when this was being built, it was really a pretty fairly flat piece of land. These trees weren't here. It was a mesquite pasture. None of
I cannot imagine.
Yeah. What the front looks like is what the garden looked like. All of this dirt was brought in from Dry Creek, the bottom down here that we also own. And so he built up the soil, but he not only could work harder than anyone, but he knew what things would look like in 10 years and 15 years. I remember him walking me to Oxbow and Summer House, and there was this little bitty hedge, and he said, someday you won't be able to see oxbow from Summer House. And I was like, not in your lifetime. Well, he was right. And so that was his gift. His gift is really to be able to see down the line and dream big. He will tell you what's the best day to plant a tree. Well, it was 10 years ago, he said, but the other one is today, even though he'll say, I won't live long enough to see this be a big tree, but I don't know about that. I think he could. But they started the garden kind of as a little bit of a hobby. They were both gardeners. Neither had any kind of horticulture background or real expertise. They just both worked out here, and it was after they sold the company, so they had traveled to Europe a little bit. And this garden, the channel garden behind me, was actually inspired by one of their visits to a garden in Europe. So they came home, and my dad thought this would be a nice thing to do for my mother.
I just love that your parents built this and then didn't keep it to themselves. They've opened it up to the public so that, random people like me can just come out here and just enjoy it. I really want to say thank you for that.
Oh, well, you're welcome. It's been 22 years since it's been open to the public, and that to me is remarkable. And again, I'm not sure that was their plan. I've asked my dad, what were you and Mom really thinking? And he would say, oh, no. And I think he's right.
Well, if it was a hobby, it got out of hand. I'll tell you that.
The last thing my mom did before she was taken from us by Alzheimer's was work on the train station. And you might think that'd be my dad's thing. And he is a train man. His dad worked on trains as a job all growing up. And so Dad knows everything about trains. Anybody that wants to know something about how trains were built, when they were built, you can come out and talk to my dad as he weeds. Don't bother him while he's weeding. You have to listen to him. But so my mom had seen this, that the Chicago Botanical Garden had done it and increased their visitation. So this was sort of her thing that she researched and did. And that's sort of the last thing that she was really part of. And I think she would be really proud of how we've kept it up and kept it going. And it's a favorite of men and children. And I like to say it's because men and children have a lot in common.
I think I agree with that.
It's a great place to come and hike and walk, or I don't know if you call it hiking. There's a lot. You can easily get several miles in up here. If you can even easily get lost, I'll tell you that, if you don't really kind of keep an eye on where you're going. But it's just a great place to get some peace. I find it very healing. If you need some time either alone or just to kind of leave your daily life behind, which we all do, this is a great place to find it. And it's right here in our backyard, or literally in my backyard. But it's in the Parker County, Palapinna County. We're fortunate to have it amongst many other good places to go and be out in nature.
Well, that is one of the things I really like about living in Mineral Wells or around Mineral Wells, Palapinna County, Jack County, Parker County, is that there's so many natural, healthy things to do. And coming out and getting steps in here at this park, and like you said, just being surrounded by such a serene setting, I think it's a good thing for a human being to do, right? So It's really nice to have this, and it does fit right in of a piece with the various state parks around us, and the healthy water history of the spa history of our town and stuff like that. So. Can I ask about the freeze? I can't imagine. I know the freeze, Snowmageddon, had an impact on what little bit of a garden I have in my house. Had some crepe myrtles that were killed. Now they're coming back up out of the ground now. But just with a garden this size, I can't imagine how that affected y'all.
Yeah, it was a tough time, and actually it started in November for us. And what I don't think a lot of people know, because we were able to repair most of that damage without the public seeing it, is we had 2 sounders of hogs spend most of the month of November here in the evenings.
Oh, wow.
And it was pretty, that started the devastation for us that work here and love it. And, the men that are working here for me as gardeners now have been here, some of them 20 years. Their hard work, it was being just rooted around by hogs. We put up hog paneling, or actually cattle paneling, around the channel garden where we sit now and around the white garden, just to try to keep them out, and so that we could plant our tulips, because we always have the big tulip bloom in February, March. So we were just recovering from the hogs, and when the freeze happened. Probably the most difficult pill to swallow was our Lady Banks roses that are lined the arbor, and they're not there. They're coming back, but out of being here 13, 14 years almost, I can tell you that I've learned one thing, and that you cannot fight Mother Nature. You can say your prayers and hope for the best, and you can do all you can to be prepared, but sometimes things just are out of your control. So, because our Lady Banks died for the most part, we cut them down, and we're going to use this as an opportunity to repaint the arbor, and hopefully it'll last another 22 years, and then most miraculously, the Lady Bank roses are coming back from their roots. We never thought that would happen. But as soon as we cut the dead down to the ground, they started sending up not very big green shoots, but they're coming out with some green shoots. So we'll replace some, we'll put in some new, but I actually think these that are coming back will be healthier because they're well established in the soil. So that was probably the number one thing that happened to us, was the Lady Banks roses. And that was an iconic view. I knew spring was on the way when the Lady Banks were blooming. So it was like, we can get ready now. It's spring. But, you just have to make lemonade out of lemons.
Yes.
And we'll paint this and change out the cloth on top. And we will have some beautiful Lady Banks, maybe not this next year, but I bet you in 2 or 3 years we have.
That'll be fun to watch that take shape and come back. Can I ask you? You mentioned the tulip bloom. Can I ask you about your calendar? What events or high points happen throughout the year that are kind of a regular occurrence?
Sure can. Everybody knows iris season, and we get phone calls all the time. When do you think the iris will be in prime bloom? Well, this year it was really hard to tell. One part of us wanted to say, maybe not. But actually they did beautiful and were fine, and that's mid-April. We always say April 15th to May 15th is irises. But before that, we plant over 10 to 15,000 tulips each year, and primarily therefore a big spring wow factor. And along with that, we have some daffodils and narcissus. So that happens sometimes as early as mid-February, not this year, up until the iris bloom. So we try to plant late blooming tulips so that we get them for our guests, because we reopen in March 1st. So we try to have that as something they can look forward to. And we do all sorts of varieties, and that's always fun to see what they do. So March is what I call tulip. April is the irises. Then May comes, and it was a late year this year for the daylilies. The daylilies about mid-May come in until about July 1st, probably more towards the end of June. And I didn't remember to mention the pink double ruffled poppies that come up, thousands of them. But those literally started, somebody gave my mom a handful of seeds years ago, probably more than 30 years ago, and she threw that one group of poppies out, and these have multiplied over the years, and to the point now where we have to pull them. Then summer, what I think you see here that is really applicable for all of us gardeners that garden at home, are what will work in the drought or dry season. We have tons of perennials, tons of blooming things. Right now they're kind of in a little bit of a lull, but they'll come back as soon as we get our first rain. That's usually happens about late August, 1st of September, and they'll reflush, and they stay beautiful until the first freeze. The one thing on the calendar that's always there is a train show the Labor Day weekend, and we have visiting model train clubs come in, and they set up their trains in the tent, and that's how we kick off our our fall season.
Okay.
So that's always a lot of fun. We missed it last year, but it'll be back this year, bigger and better. And then we do a lot of mums, pumpkins. Actually, this year I'm trying to grow pumpkins.
Oh, okay.
I won't grow as many as we buy, but you have to start somewhere, and you have to try and see what varieties work for you. So I was trying to be very clever and plant the pumpkins in the iris beds to help control weeds, so that they would kind of suffocate out the weeds. Well, I think we're living in happy harmony, pumpkins and weeds. So that plan didn't quite work out the way I had planned. And then we also have corn growing and sunflowers. Strangest thing that happened again, you can't fight Mother Nature. We planted probably close to 1,000 sunflower seeds, and I have about 6 that came up. What happened is right after we planted them, we got one of those big rainstorms in April.
Okay.
And that washed away my seed.
Oh, wow.
I was surprised. But anyway, so we'll have a great fall. We do mums. I love fall, and I think it's one of the best times to be out here. It's a little more dependable weather. It may not be cold, but you know it's not going to probably have a thunderstorm in the afternoon, although we don't ever complain about rain here. A little fact a lot of people may not know is we water the entire garden by hand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we use the little small sprinklers for the grass. Some we do have the tractors, but my dad believes that irrigation systems waste water. Now, that's where we sort of disagree. I have put in some drip a couple of places. We have them in the rose beds next to the east tent, and I'll tell you, it has done wonderful. We don't have black spot near as much. The roses are doing great. So we'll sneak in some drip here and there, and he knows what we're doing, but we don't really confront it head to head. He just pretends he doesn't see the drip line, and I pretend I don't know that we're putting in the drip line. But we have a drip in a few places, and it has made a big difference. But all 35 acres of this garden is watered.
My goodness. So it's 35 acres.
35 acres.
And so it's open from when to when to the public?
It's open from March 1st through July 4th, and then it reopens Labor Day weekend until, well, actually it opens September 1st, and then to through Thanksgiving weekend. Again, there's so many good things happening in Mineral Wells right now that we want to be part of all of that. And I don't know that many of you know that we are now available to camp and or bring your self-contained RV out.
I wanted to ask about that. I just saw that on Facebook recently, and I'm really intrigued by that. That's a big change for you guys, and it's pretty exciting.
And last night we had our first customer, and she, a woman, I actually don't know where she was from, not around here, and she came and camped, and it's already gone, and everything went well. And so it's a hip camp. For those of you, I was not real familiar with it, but we've always had people ask us, can I bring my RV? And we don't have hookups. Maybe a little hint is yet. Yeah. But we were willing to give this a try, especially when we're not in busy season.
So what does hip camp mean?
It's an organization where they can find atypical camping sites.
Okay.
You do pay. It's $35 to camp here for 24 hours. So you do pay, and that's kind of the incentive for us, is to also see if people are interested. You know, we have Lake Mineral Wells State Park. You can literally access the trailway out our driveway. And so we just feel like with all the excitement that's going on in Mineral Wells, with all the natural things you can do, Lake Mineral Wells State Park is iconic, but the new bicycle company in town, the other parks, Frontier Trails, we just want to be part of that. We want to be part of allowing or giving people the opportunity to get out of their homes, especially after the last year we've had, and get to experience nature. And this is about as safe place as you can be. We do have wildlife. I mentioned those hogs. Hopefully they won't come visit you when you're camping. We think they're gone, at least till winter. But, it is a very natural environment, especially when you're kind of the only person up here at night. You get to walk around the garden until it's dark. So you've got a whole lot, 35 acres that you can have a picnic in.
Are there any restrictions on types of RVs or campers, or do y'all allow pop-ups?
Yes, we do allow, and really you just have to be self-contained. We don't have the hookups yet.
Right.
So, and we do, they have access to our restrooms, which are nice, clean restrooms, but no shower facilities, so it wouldn't be something you'd want to come for long term. But, and there's lots of areas to camp in.
Do you allow tent camping?
Yes, that's what our guest last night did.
Okay.
You know, if you are a winter bird, or if you're someone that even lives here that just has wondered, people ask me all the time, why don't y'all have late hours? Well, we do now. You too can experience the garden after hours. So
if you camp here, you can walk the garden in the evening and
yes, and in the early morning.
I would enjoy that.
From dusk to dawn, it's probably not a great idea.
But as the sun's setting or coming up.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to come and just chill and, sneak that bottle of wine in your bag and don't be rowdy and have a good time.
Just enjoy
let the kids run around.
What you guys have built and maintained out here. Yeah. So I know I picked the hottest week of the year. It's going to be over 100 every day this week. Would you be willing to walk around a little bit and show maybe some of the highlights of the park?
Of course I would. This morning I burned weeds, so it can't get hotter than that.
I'll probably give out before you do.
Okay.
All right, well, let's take a look.